Yeah, the Wildcat defense struggled to contain Casumna Soaks quarterback Jaron Stallworth. Get these stats. He threw 9 for 9 for 205 yards. Yeah, that's right. Both teams were in the Capital Athletic League the last 4 years. And while they were there, they had some big matchups. It started back in 2010 when both teams went into the last week of the season undefeated in league play in a game that decided the league champion. It was close the whole way. Antelope was able to contain junior quarterback Jake Rodriguez and Whitney's high-powered offense. And Antelope running back Xavier Winrow ran for 139 yards and led the Titans to a 28-19 victory and claimed the 2010 Cal Championship. Yeah, we seem to be headed for a blowout as that one, as the Wildcats jumped out to an early 20-0 lead behind a couple of great defensive plays in the first quarter. However, things would change, and they would change quickly as Antelope scored 28 unanswered points. They would go on to win 35-27, claiming their second Cal championship in 3 years.
Plays?
Well, yeah, like you said, they have nothing to lose. What we will see is we'll see a very focused team. With the history between Whitney and Antelope, the Cats still feel like they have something to prove. And with the pressure off tonight, they may be able to pull out some things that we wouldn't normally see them pull off.
Yeah, how does the starting lineup from the Oak Ridge game compare to the starting lineup tonight?
Well, the lineup for Whitney is finally starting to look a little bit more like it looked like the original starters in Week 1 against Oak Ridge. At one point in the middle of the season against Bella Vista, the team had 11 of those original starters inactive, but with some big names like Hunter Rodriguez and Jared Wilson back on the list of availables tonight, we should definitely see a stronger Whitney team.
What does the win mean for the Titans tonight?
Well, with a win, the Titans would be a lock for the Division II playoffs and would finish in second place in the Capital Valley Conference, possibly in a three-way tie with Del Campo, Roseville, and all those teams are behind Casumna Soaks, who won the CVC championship, or clinched it at least last week.
Before kickoff.
Well, that's right. These Wildcats that you see have been a part of a great program over the last 4 years. These Wildcats have been a part of a program that has won 2 league titles.
Also season. And as we mentioned, the playoffs start 1 week from today, and the race for the CVC is a tight one. There's a lot we don't know yet.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot we don't know yet, but let's take a look at the potential situations. The one thing we do know is that Casumna Oaks will win the league championship. They clinched a title last week with the win over the Whitney Wildcats. Now 3 teams, Del Campo, Roseville, and Antelope, all stand at 4-2 in league. Antelope has the advantage here because they've beaten both Del Campo and Roseville. The simplest outcome tonight is if Antelope wins here, they will get second in league because they win the tiebreaker, and they will receive the CVC's second automatic bid to the playoffs.
What do the Wildcats have to do to get their second Capital Valley Conference win?
First off, the Wildcats have to give their quarterback plenty of time to throw. Hunter Rodriguez is only playing for the second time after breaking that collarbone, but if Rodriguez has time to throw, receivers Dom Watson, Devin Burkini, and Daniel Jones could all potentially have big nights tonight.
So let's take a minute and look back at some of your favorite moments from calling 3 years of Whitney football.
You know, for me, one game stands out, and it's got to be last year's Corey Bowl. The Corey Bowl was awesome. To be able to look down from the press box and not only see Whitney side packed, but to see both sides packed, it was a great atmosphere for a couple hours. Something felt like more than just a high school game, and to be able to have the honor to bring that to play some small part in bringing that to those who couldn't get tickets to that sellout game, you know, it was a tremendous honor. And looking back, probably one of my favorite memories from the last 3 years. Justin and I are going to head up to the press box, and we will have the call starting at 6:50 and taking you up and through kickoff. Hello, welcome to Wildcat Stadium, where the Whitney Wildcats are set to take on the Oakmont Vikings on Whitney's homecoming. And welcome into the booth, everyone, as we get set for another week of CVC football here alongside Justin Chandler. I'm Matt Judy, as always, and Justin, we should have a good and competitive one tonight.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned both teams going for their first league win of the season. Well, simply put, the Wildcats have had a tough road up to this point, but that could change tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Up to this point, the Wild, and we talked to Mike Jimenez this week, and he is thrilled to have Wilson back.
Well, why wouldn't you be? And tonight we thought maybe the return of Hunter Rodriguez. He's been taking reps in practice, but found out yesterday he's still not cleared to play with that collarbone injury, so the nod will go to Tyreek Caesar, who started the last 2 weeks. Stadium, where the Whitney Wildcats are set to take on the Antelope Titans on Whitney Senior Night. And welcome into the booth as we get set for the final week of CVC football here alongside Justin Chandler one last time. I'm Matt Judy, and Justin, things could get interesting tonight. But yeah, for the Wildcats, this season has not gone to plan. They were hit by the injury bug hard this year, and compound that with an already young team, and that makes for a bad situation. So for the Wildcats, tonight is about ending the season on a high note and building momentum for the future, as the Wildcats should return a fair amount of their starters for next year. Well, it's Whitney's Senior Night as they take on CVC rival Antelope Titans We'll have the national anthem and the kickoff coming up after the break. Hello, high school football fans. I'm Matt Judy. Today we have a special Coach's Corner. For the first time, we're sitting down with varsity football head coach Mike Jimenez before the season starts. Coach, how are you doing today?
Outstanding. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's get right to it. You guys have been busy since the end of last season. Fill us in on how your spring workouts went and tell us a little bit about that Sac State football camp. We actually heard you had an opportunity to play Bishop Gorman from Las Vegas, who, according to the USA Today, is the #1 team in the country. How'd that all go? All right, well, let's start by talking about the offense. You just mentioned it. The team is young. In June, 25 seniors graduated. 17 of those played on the offense. What are some of the challenges preparing such a young group for the upcoming season? Now, let's start by talking about the positions. Let's start with quarterback. Drew Romo was a 2-year starter before he graduated, and now you have 2 options in sophomore Jay Sean Lewis and junior Hunter Rodriguez. How have those 2 performed so far at camp? So, at this point in the fall camp, who does it look like has the edge so far in that quarterback battle? So you think the reason he's a little ahead is maybe just because he's been in the program for so long? Like you said, he's the brother of former player Jake Rodriguez, who's now at San Diego State. Do you think that has helped him a lot? That's certainly a good problem to have, too many quarterbacks versus not enough. So now let's move out to the guys catching the balls, the receivers. You graduated a lot of your receiving core in Chris Corpus, Justin Herman, and tight end Jason Brunet. Those 3 combined for over 1,100 yards of receiving. So simply, who's going to step up and fill their spots? Now, a solid run game is vital in complementing the passing attack. With Kwani Wilkinson and Zuhair Mirza both gone to graduation, who's going to step up in the backfield this year? It seemed like last year when you need those short yards, when you're on the goal line, you either look to Marcus Robinson or Jordan Traynor. You mentioned Joe Roberts. Is he going to step up as kind of that power back role? Now let's go to the guys up front. Sophomore Grant Barry was quoted as saying, "I feel really confident. We have a lot of really skilled guys, and I think we can beat other teams up front," end quote. When you hear that kind of confidence from your players, what's your reaction to that? You mentioned you don't really have any true starters returning. So can you give us some insight on who it looks like the starters or the standouts are going to be? You know, we've mentioned a common theme has been it's a young team. When you lose so many seniors, you can lose a lot of leadership. So who do you think is going to step up as the leader of the offensive side, or has someone already done that in fall camp? All right, well, we're going to stop for a quick commercial break. When we return, we're going to turn the conversation to the Wildcats defense. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Hello sports fans, I'm Matt Judy and this is your Full Court Press. Now over the last 2 years, the men's volleyball team won 2 league titles, 2 section titles, and finished 2nd in Northern California. Reporter Kyle Dowd and photographer Josh Penny find out how the seniors on the team are hoping to set themselves up to dig out a 3rd straight section title and another bid at NorCal's. The team finishes their first round of tryouts today and will make the final cuts after the basketball season. They play their first home game of the season on March 3rd against Del Oro. Up next, we're going to show you some highlights from last Wednesday when the men's basketball team faced off against the Ponderosa Bruins. The Wildcats lost to the Bruins the first time through league play, and this game was a must-win for the team to keep pace in the playoff race. Let's pick things up with Pondo leading 45-40 with 30 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. Number 23, Sterling Quinton drives baseline, lays it in with the foul. Give him the 3-point play, and on the Wildcats' next possession, number 4, Alex Mostad goes splash down from downtown to put the Wildcats in the lead for the first time in the second half, 46-45. The Bruins would try and fight back as number 22, Jordan Brennan, would turn a fast break layup into a 3-point play, making the score 61-54, but it would be too little too late. On this possession, every Wildcat on the floor would touch the ball, just burning some clock. That possession would end with Sterling Quinton throwing it down as Whitney would go on to beat the Bruins in a tight one, 68-64. Up next, we'll show you the highlights from last Friday's showdown between the Lady Cats and the Oakmont Vikings. Whitney jumped out to a huge first half lead with number 24, Alana Scott, leading the way with 10 points. The Wildcats would lead the Vikings 27-11 at the break. Midway through the 3rd, the Vikings would attempt to mount a comeback as number 10, Grace Hester, lays it in to cut the deficit to 37-18. But after the Viking run, number 5, Sammy Willis drives the lane with this bucket, increasing the lead to 16, and the Lady Cats would never look back as Scott hits the tray from the top of the key. In this game, Scott broke the record for career 3-pointers made as Whitney defeated the Vikings 55-33. Well, that was your Full Court Press. Don't forget to tune in again next week. But as for now, I'm sports reporter Matt Judy. Now back to Michael and Noah in the studio. The reigning Division I Central Section champion Clovis North Broncos traveled up to Folsom to take on the 6th-ranked team in the country. And Folsom, while they'd proved their rank, already up 7-0 early in the first, the special teams goes to work. Number 51, Sam Whitney, gets through unblocked and blocks the punt, which would give Jake Browning a short field as the Folsom offense takes over 1st and goal on the 5-yard line. They would punch it in 3 plays later on a Jake Browning 1-yard quarterback sneak. The Folsom defense came up big, sacking Clovis North quarterback Austin Autry 4 different times on the night. That would stall the Bronco drive, giving Browning good field position yet again. And 4 plays later, Browning would connect with senior number 10, Cole Thompson, from 40 yards out. Browning's 2nd touchdown pass of the night, 9th of the season, and 147th of his career. And that is a new California record for him. But Browning wasn't done yet. In their very next offensive drive, Browning connects with junior Jake Jeffrey for 22 yards. He would connect with Josiah DeGuara from 9 yards out to put the Bulldogs up 28-0 with just under 3 minutes remaining in the first quarter. Then, just 30 seconds into the second quarter, Browning making it look easy as he connects with DeGuara for their 2nd touchdown hookup of the night, putting Folsom up 35. Then just a few minutes later, Browning hits senior Jake Morgado across the middle, and Morgado does the rest as the play goes for 61 yards down the sideline to the Clovis North 7-yard line. They would punch it in 2 plays later. Then Browning would take one final bow with a minute remaining in the first half as he hits Parker Boone for his 6th touchdown pass of the game as the Bulldogs put up 49 points in the first half alone. Clovis North would finally punch the scorecard right at the end of the first half as Bolu Olurunfunmi breaks it open and scampers for 49 yards, but it was too late as Folsom rolls visiting Clovis North 49-13.
I've played sports my whole life, so it's no surprise I've been a part of some great moments on a lot of different playing fields. Everything from here on the golf course to here on the baseball field. But when I stepped into this studio, it was my job to capture those great moments. And over the last 4 years, I've done just that, everything from hosting live events to interviewing coaches to filming highlight packages of section football playoff games. I've had the opportunity to capture some of the best moments in Sacramento area high school sports.